I know what that real sound is. I know what actually hitting on the one and bringing that people together through music is. The name of that band was called the Redline Lounge. Little did I know, me focusing on like learning all this Prince stuff and all this stuff, I was just at home practicing for no reason at all, just doing it, just putting on whole. I would sit in my room, like everybody be outside playing. I would sit in my room, blast my music, have a little mic stand, putting on whole shows for an invisible audience.
Right.
For just no reason. And meeting this band, it was like, they're like, man, you do that, we do this. And it was like, it aligned the right way. So once I learned more because they was all older than me. So I just started learning more. They was like, yeah, we used to be one of the bass player, Gerald. He was like, yeah, I used to be in a Prince cover band when I was younger. So he was like, me and the guitarist, we've been playing for 30 plus years. So this is our band. And he was like, we do cover, we do everything. They were all soul, funk. Like they was doing Isley Brothers. And I just fit in right in and do the Prince type stuff and do all that. So they're like, you gonna fit in, you gonna be our last act of the night with our shows. Which after as time went on, some of the vocalists didn't like that. They didn't like that because we would have like damn near a review. They'd have every vocalist go up, do their couple of songs, then I'd come up and just shut it down, just be like, okay. But sooner or later it just ended up being me because all the other vocalists be like, man, y'all showing favoritism to him, but I was in the band longer, so it was like new vocalists would come in the band and think they supposed to close out the show, and I'm like, yeah. And somebody was like, man, you guys seniority in the band. How they feel like they? I don't know. So
how many people were in this band?
This one was very smaller. We had about I would say we didn't go over 7 people.
Okay.
We had, let me see, drums, percussion, keys, lead guitar, bass, and then we had like, let me see, like 2 singers sometimes. Yeah. So.
And when you put that ad out, you said you put it out for a front man.
Yeah, just to be a front man in the band. And,
but you had already picked up on percussion and bass. And did you list that in there, or you were just looking to be a front man?
I didn't even tell them I did all that. I was just like, I just want to do that.
So, I mean, it was a godsend that they resonated with or shared some of the same interests as you as far as musically speaking.
Yeah.
All those songs are just kind of linked up. How long were you with them for?
So let me see, that was about 2010 till, it had to be about, I would say about 3 years, because I started my other band in 2013. So I was with them and learned a lot from that. Even though 3 years sounds short, but it was like, for me, we were working almost every day. We would rehearse. Like I'll tell people, when I used to rehearse with them, we'd get together. We'd be on the west side of Chicago. The band leader, he had a garage. We would sit in that garage we'd start rehearsal at 12 in the afternoon. And we wouldn't leave out till 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. And we would sit in there and rehearse. We'd take breaks. Everybody have beer, barbecue, whatever we eat. Yeah. Get back to it. All right, y'all, let's learn this song. We were just like working on our craft so hard where people would be walking through the alley and they'd be hearing like we doing I Want to Be Your Lover by Prince. And they're like, man, I thought the radio was playing. And that's how tight we were just like getting the sound till like we started doing different shows. And my first performance, he had set up was it an anniversary or birthday party? It was one of those, but he had a beautiful house where he was like, okay, we're going to set up a party in the backyard and it's going to be our first show. I'm going to pay y'all. As the band leader, I'm going to pay y'all to do this show for this party. So the first show, you know what? I ended up bringing dancers in the band too. I had to ask them like, hey, do y'all want to add dancers? Got on Craigslist, found dancers that fit right in at the time as well. And we do this first show and people was like, man, that guy, they was like, he got something. Y'all got to make sure y'all keep cultivating him, which they did. They kept, teaching me stuff. And my band leader, Professor, he got me more tight with not only knowing the music, but knowing how to run the band. Now, me being in the band at the time, I used to get frustrated because he used to be on me. Like, I'd do a show, like when we started doing more shows consistently, I'd do a show and he would be like, I think the crowd went nuts. And I'm like, yeah, snap. Yeah, man, come here. And he'd be like, he'd tell me a whole rundown of stuff I messed up on. And I'm like, man, what? I always get so angry because I'm like, man, did you just see this crowd? He's like, nah, you got to take it even harder. You have to. So he like cultivated me more and more. Like I already was in a position where I knew my craft, but meeting them made me just get even more like on it and tight, and even learning how to like the backside of dealing with a band, learning how to set up rehearsals, learning how to make sure, hey, when we got a show, everybody pitch in to do what we need to do. If you need, the drummer needs help setting up, we supposed to move like a team and a unit. I learned all that from him, and he used to be frustrated sometimes, and he used to go off on us. But when I got my own band, I started to see this is why you got to have a tight ship and have to be sometimes strict, because if you working with a team of people, you know, you got this thing. And then the other guy, like I told you, was 2 friends, 30 years, Gerald. Now he cultivated me more with the music and with like, hey man, he was very encouraging. Like it was kind of like a
good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, like that's what it was. Like, and Gerald was more like the fun. Like, hey, come on, man, you just killed him. You seen all them girls out there for you, and all.
That's good to have equal parts of both of those elements. And I think I was going to mention it anyway because you said those guys had years on you. So it's always to your benefit to work with a couple of guys, 1 or 2 guys that have been in it for decades, and they're going to impart some wisdom to you, and you probably needed it at that point in your life, because it's one thing to have a strong interest with something.
Yeah.
You could be casually interested in a lot of things, but to turn it into a regimented, driven machine is totally different.
Yeah.
And you probably picked up a lot of what you needed at that moment before you got ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
You know? To what end was this band? What were the goals for this band? Because it sounded like y'all practice a lot. Were they gigging?
Yeah, so the original idea was for us we're gonna start this cover band, and we were gonna go into doing original music. We started doing, you know, different gigs and stuff, but like I was saying, the first show I ever was that show, but my first live performance in Chicago on a stage was at this big blues club called Kingston Mines out in Chicago. First show we ever did was just from somebody, it was a jam session. The guy over the jam session, big time, all over the world, international blues guitarist, blues man, Lindsey Alexander, who I show so much respect to because he didn't have to let us come up there on his set. He was like, hey y'all come up here. Now, mind you, we in a blues club talking about we about to come here and do Prince. So we like, okay, you know, I'm like, me at the time, I'm like, all right, well, y'all, this is what we about to do? Come on. I wasn't really, you know, some people be like, oh man, I was kind of nervous. I'm like, let's do it. So we go up here. These people that's waiting. They first thought they trying to figure out what's this little skinny dude with this big fro, because I had a like super big fro back then. And like, okay, we're gonna see. So we do these songs, we hit these Prince songs, we just start doing all this funk. All I know is these people started standing on tables and rushing the stage like, oh man, like it just went berserk.
You woke them up.
Yeah, and I was like, oh snap, you know, and that was my first time getting a reaction like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, you know, I was kind of like, all right, but then I just got to the point, like, okay, cool. Once I seen that happen, and then the guy, he's like, y'all come back every Sunday, start building y'all name up at this jam. So we did, and then from there, you know, we started getting more connections to other gigs and stuff like that, and to the point where we was like, okay, we were doing something out in the south suburbs. We just was getting booked for different things. Only thing that happened was, you know, trying to keep a band together. We were going through different band members to the point it was like, okay, you know, what's going on? We had a core team that stuck together, but then the core teams, you know, kind of started lacking up a little bit. And so it was like, okay, by that time, where we were at, like 2013, and, you know, it's personal stuff, but I had a child on the way as well. So in my own personal life, I started like, okay, my focus went from the band to, oh man, I gotta get prepared for this baby. And then I just kind of stepped back and disappeared from the scene. It was like whoosh, and just left. And that was like in probably 2012. Yeah, 2012. I left and just stepped back for a long time. And I would go out, you know, by that time, me and my mentor, we had a falling out. So I was like, you know what? Fuck this, I quit. I got a child on the way. I ain't got, I was like, and that was the space I was in at the time.
Yeah.
So, like it wasn't like a heavy falling out. I just was just like done with, that. And I was winning, hiding for a minute. Like I was out, we were doing like and I'll bring that up later in the story, but like one spot we used to go to was called the Underground Wonder Bar in Chicago, which was that's a whole nother teaching space I was in. Like I was just ending up in these different teaching space. But before that happened, I was just chilling, like at home. I started working a job, and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was just like, man, I was just at a point. I'm like, I gotta get this money for the baby. I gotta get this money for the child coming. And one of my friends one day, he's like, man, was doing videos, and we were roommates at the time. He's like, hey man, you wanna come to this video shoot with me? He didn't tell me what it was at all. I go, and I'm like, where we at? We walk into a bar, and it's a band playing. And I'm like, this mother, I'm out of the scene right now. I'm not, like, because around that time, I was somewhat known around Chicago, but as they would call me Little Prince. I didn't have my own name at all. And that was another thing I was dealing with, was like my identity as an artist.
Sure.
Where, you doing covers so good where people like, man, ain't nobody doing Prince like you. You doing the splits, you singing all these high note ass songs. You got this, man. You Prince, you Little Prince. And I had to keep, my name is Tamarie T. You remind us of Prince. And I'm like, come on, man.
Tough rut
It
to
was
crawl
always
up out of,
yeah. So it was kind of, I was getting tired of that. So I'm sitting at this spot, and then what really shook me. Let me rewind. It was a blues diva named Sharon Lewis, and I love her so too as well. Much respect, international blues, Chicago blues legend. I got off the stage at Kingston Mines one day, and she was like, I know what you're doing. We know all those songs you're doing, but I want to hear you. And it was like a gunshot. It like shot me. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I was hurt. And I was like, oh man, see, I knew. That was just another part of it that just made me just feel like, oh, the covers are cool, but I know I got something deeper inside of me that needs to come out. So
at that point, roughly, you had 3 years of religiously covering songs to a T. So it kind of becomes you.
Yeah.
A cloak of you, I guess.
Like I'm doing vocal lessons just to learn how to sing a Prince song.
Right.
Like it was crazy. But I was like, in between that, I was messing around with at least trying to find my sound. Like I would go home and I learn how to use a computer to like do beats and stuff like that and make these different like tracks. So I'll play around and just make these drum tracks and stuff like that, but then just put it back in. All right, let me go do this Prince stuff. Let me learn this Prince. Like I tell people all the time. Now, and it's not only just Prince. We did Morris Day and the Time. We did James Brown. We did so much where I got like millions of lyrics in my head. Somebody's like, hey, sing this song. I know it instantly. Yeah. And so back to the story where he took me to the venue where the band is performing. So I'm just in the back, and I still used to, every time we used to go, I still have my trench coats and my shades, and I'll be in the cut with my own little style. And I'm watching this band, and I just hear this voice like, you can do better than that. I'm like, this ain't even, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not here to judge this show. Like, but the band was really, they were just sitting up there, just playing with no emotion, no feeling.
Sure.
And it was like, you can do better than that. So what you about to do when you go home, you going to start preparing to get a band together, and you going to call it the Kumpany, but with a K, Kumpany. I'm like, okay.